response to this aggression, we announced on February 22nd up to 460 more troops to NATO through Operation Reassurance, on top of the 500 already here, and the deployment of, as the Prime Minister mentioned, an additional frigate and a maritime patrol aircraft to reinforce NATO's eastern flank. Now, as the Prime Minister just announced, we are going even further. Today, we are renewing our support by extending Operation Reassurance mission 1 year ahead of time. This announcement reflects our deep commitment to the long-term security, stability, and interoperability of the NATO alliance. J'aimerais remercier nos forces armées canadiennes pour leur dévouement et de continuer de l'engagement du Canada en Lettonie pour le flanc de l'Est de l'OTAN et pour la sécurité, la dissuasion et la stabilité mondiale. I want to conclude by expressing my gratitude to our Canadian Armed Forces by continuing to put service before self and for continuing Canada's enduring commitment to Latvia, to NATO's eastern flank, and to our collective security at home and abroad. And I extend this appreciation to all who serve and who are here today. Thank you. Merci. Baldias. I now am happy to pass the mic over to Prime Minister Sanchez. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, my dear friends. As Prime Minister Trudeau said, today, 8 March, should have been a day of celebration of women and girls in Ukraine. Unfortunately, Putin's brutal aggression is forcing them to flee their country or fight for their lives. I would like to pay an homage today to all of them and reassure that we will stand by their side. I would like to thank the President and the Prime Minister of Latvia for organizing this visit. I am very happy to share it with my friend Justin, with Prime Minister Trudeau, whose country commands this battle group, and with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. We are here to support our Baltic allies and friends in these very difficult times, and to send a very clear message to President Putin. NATO allies are united, and the transatlantic bond is stronger than ever. I want to insist once again, our main commitment is with peace. NATO is a defensive alliance, as Secretary General of NATO has said, and all our actions so far are deterrence efforts to avoid confrontation. The Spanish troops are the second largest contingent here in Adassis battle group, and I want to recognize our soldiers' dedication, solidarity, and professionalism. We are increasing our deployment with 157 additional soldiers, and we are also ready to fulfill our commitment through the graduate response plans. I would like to reaffirm Spain's unwavering support to Ukraine. We have delivered several tons of humanitarian aid and military equipment. Spain will also be up to the challenge that represents the dreadful humanitarian crisis caused by this terrible war, with over 1.7 million people fleeing their country. We will stay by the Ukrainian government and by the Ukrainian people to withstand Putin's unjustified attack. This is an act of aggression, not only to Europe's security, but also
Liels paldies. Mums ir laiks pāris jautājumiem. Es aicinu mēdīju pārstāvjus, kuriem būs pacelt roku, un, ja ir jautājumi, tad lūgums arī iepazīstināt ar sevi un arī norādīt, kam jūs uzdodat jautājumu. Lūdzu, vai ir jautājumi? Es vienkārši tagad... jā, lūdzu.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Murray Brewster with CBC News. Prime Minister Trudeau, Allies have been shipping to Ukraine anti-aircraft weapons and anti-tank weapons. Canada has sent anti-tank weapons. Both of those capabilities are in short supply in the Canadian military. The Canadian Army does not have a dedicated surface-to-air defense system. Will your government commit to an urgent procurement to cover those capability gaps, and will your government commit to meeting NATO's benchmark standard of 2% of GDP in defense spending?
First of all, we understand the urgency that is presented right now in the world with Ukrainians standing strong against this illegal Russian invasion. And that's why we have sent aid, we have sent weapons, we will continue to send support to Ukrainians as they stand and defend not just their country, but defend democracy, defend the values that underpin democracy, and in fact defend us all. Those weapons are much more useful right now and in the coming weeks in the hands of Ukrainian soldiers fighting for their lives than they would be in Canadian hands. But of course, we need to make sure we replace those weapons rapidly and that we continue to invest in the equipment that leads our armed forces to be able to continue to contribute, not just in places like here in Latvia, but everywhere around the world where we are called on to do. I had an excellent conversation with Secretary General Stoltenberg earlier this afternoon, in which I talked about, indeed, our approach to continuing to invest in our military and making sure that Canada is always there to stand up.
En français, Prime Minister.
Nous allons toujours chercher à contribuer plus pour l'OTAN. Je pense qu'on voit à quel point c'est important d'être présent pour défendre nos démocraties, mais évidemment, les appuis qu'on envoie immédiatement en Ukraine, incluant des armes et des armements, sont utiles non seulement pour défendre l'Ukraine dans l'immédiat, mais sont en train de se battre pour défendre nos démocraties à travers le monde.
Es atvainojos, man tāds, ka Latvijas žurnālists vēlējās uzdot. Jūs esat no Latvijas?
Okay. Oui, bonjour, M. Trudeau, Laurence Martin de Radio-Canada. La Russie a réactivé plusieurs de ses bases de la guerre froide en Arctique. Et récemment, ils ont aussi fait des exercices militaires dans la région. Bon, vous annoncez aujourd'hui un prolongement de la mission ici en Lettonie, mais en Arctique, est-ce que vous pensez qu'on est vulnérable? Et est-ce que vous allez renforcer notre présence militaire là-bas?
Ça fait plusieurs années qu'on est en train d'investir dans notre présence militaire partout dans le monde, mais particulièrement aussi dans l'Arctique. Mais sur ce point-là, ça me ferait grand plaisir de passer la parole à notre ministre de la Défense qui peut en dire plus.
Okay.
Es atvainojos.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Bien sûr, la souveraineté, la protection de notre Arctique, c'est très important pour nous. Premièrement, nous avons déjà signé un contrat avec Nasdaq Corporation pour le North Warning System. Ça, c'est 600 millions de dollars. Et aussi, en même temps, c'est important d'avoir une option, une approche pour la protection renouvelable dans l'Arctique. Donc, pour ça, j'ai parlé beaucoup avec mon homologue dans les États-Unis et nous avons décidé de travailler ensemble pour la protection de notre continent et aussi de notre monde. Donc, le NORAD Modernization, ça c'est une chose très très importante pour moi et pour notre gouvernement aussi. Et nous allons avoir une approche robuste dans le court terme sur ça. Et ça c'est une chose très importante pour nous et pour le gouvernement du Canada. Merci beaucoup.
Es atvainojos, vai es varētu būt mūsu iespēja vēl pāris jautājumiem. Vienam, vai ir kāds mēdījis no Spānijas? Jūs?
Yeah. Hello. So far, well, I'm Iñaki Aguado from Informativos, I think on behalf of all the Spanish journalists here today. So, so far the response through sanctions has not stopped Putin. What should be the path from now on? How far can NATO go? And how far can the European Union go as well? Do you consider the possibility of stopping buying oil and gas from Russia, just like the US has proposed? And do you think that Argelian gas could be the solution to supply all European countries? And Prime Minister Sanchez, as far as Spain goes, what steps are you willing to take to respond to the economic impact of the war in our country? Is it possible to use the loans of the Next Generation funds? And is it possible to lower fuel taxes? And we would be very grateful if we could have an answer in Spanish as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Iñaki, for your questions. First of all, I think it's crucial to be united. This is what we are showing today with the Prime Minister of Latvia, Prime Minister of Canada, Secretary General of NATO, Spain, and all the allies in NATO and the European Union. And that is why I think it's important not to, to advance different measures that we're going to debate in the Council in the coming days in Paris. But of course, economic sanctions is one of the most powerful instruments that we have in order to stop this terrible and unjustified war that Putin is, making against a free country such as Ukraine. Secondly, of course, I think it's very important to act regarding the economic impact in Spain and, of course, in the world economy and especially in the European economy. I think it's important to act in different dimensions. First of all, the multilateral dimensions, and here we have countries that belong to the G7. But of course, at the European level, I think it's important the communication that the Commission has released today regarding the energy policy, which is one of the major tools for the economic growth, and of course it is already impacting this crisis on the energy prices. And of course, I think it's important also to have this unity among parties in Spain, and of course this unity that we have shown with the trade unions and enterprises, first with the pandemic and the response, the economic response to this pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course nowadays with this terrible and unjustified war led by Putin. So this is the question or the answer in English, and in Spanish I would say que creo que es lo más importante es contar con la unidad de todos los países, de toda la comunidad internacional. Creo que la votación de la Asamblea General de Naciones Unidas que vimos hace escasos días demostró que Putin está solo y que todo el mundo, la mayoría del mundo, está con Ucrania. Y esa unidad se tiene que demostrar desde el punto de vista de las sanciones económicas, desde el punto de vista de la respuesta que tenemos que dar la comunidad internacional, aislando completamente a Putin, también en sanciones económicas contra él mismo y contra la oligarquía que ha crecido en torno a su régimen. Y por tanto me van a permitir que no adelante muchas de estas conversaciones que vamos a tener con los socios europeos en el próximo Consejo Informal dentro de escasos días en Versalles, en París, bajo la presidencia pro tempore de Francia de la Unión Europea. En segundo lugar, decirles que desde luego en el Congreso de los Diputados presenté lo que es el esbozo de ese plan nacional de respuesta al impacto económico que va a tener la crisis de la guerra de Putin en nuestro país. Hace escasos días, este pasado lunes, me pude reunir con los agentes sociales, sindicatos y empresarios para trasladarles cuáles eran las líneas de actuación que vamos a hacer desde el Gobierno precisamente para amortiguar el impacto que en el ámbito de los precios, tanto de la energía como también de las materias primas, va a tener esta terrible crisis. Que va a costar, sin duda alguna, pero mayor sería el coste si no actuáramos en contra de Putin, si no actuáramos en contra de quien ahora mismo no solamente está infringiendo la legalidad internacional, sino que está poniendo en cuestión y en riesgo la seguridad de todos los europeos, que es precisamente lo que venimos aquí a garantizar. Esa seguridad en las fronteras europeas, ya sea en Letonia, ya sea en Estonia, ya sea en cualquiera de los países del frente oriental de Europa. Y esa unidad de los aliados y esa unidad también de los europeos me parece ahora mismo trascendental. Y desde luego España, como he dicho en otras muchas ocasiones, va a estar donde debe estar y hará lo que debe hacer. Thank you. Gracias.
Mums ir laiks vēl vienam jautājumam. Vārds. Nē. Es atvainojos, nē.
Nē.
Mums ir Latvijas žurnālistai Inai Strazdiņai. Lūdzu, vārds jums. Jā, mums.
Thank you so much. Ines Strazdiņa, Latvian Television. Just very shortly, my question to Mr. Sanchez. You already mentioned that you decided to send more troops to Latvia. Could you please be a little bit specific about when they could arrive? Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, we've been committed with Latvia for long under the command of the Canadian Army. And we are going to deploy, as I said before, 150 new soldiers here in this base, and it's going to be very quick, very fast, since the NATO Secretary General and of course the commander asked us to deploy as fast as we can these military units.
Paldies, un saprotu, ka mums ir vēl viens jautājums. Mēs varam paņemt vēl vienu jautājumu. Lūdzu, vārds.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Secretary General, what would NATO do if Vladimir Putin encroached on even 1 centimeter of NATO territory? And Mr. Trudeau, would you be willing to go to war?
We are here to deter any attack on any NATO allied country, and deterrence has helped to preserve peace for more than 70 years. Now we are stepping up to send an even stronger message to President Putin that an attack on one ally will trigger the response from the whole alliance. So we are here to protect every inch of allied territory of Latvia and all other NATO countries. And the purpose of that deterrence is not to provoke a war, but it is to prevent a war, it is to preserve peace. And when we see the aggressive actions of President Putin against Ukraine, it has led to a big reinforcement of our presence in Latvia and also in other parts of the eastern flank of our alliance. And I would like to commend Canada, Spain, and also Latvia as a host nation for really demonstrating unity, demonstrating commitment to our collective defense. And as long as we stand together, North America and Europe in NATO, we are all safe, because we are by far the strongest alliance in history, and the unity is much stronger than President Putin expected. He wants less NATO, he's getting more NATO. He wanted to divide us, he's getting a more united alliance. So we are here to preserve peace, prevent war, and that's the reason why we are increasing our defensive deterrence presence in Latvia and in the rest of the eastern part of the alliance.
Vladimir Putin made a fundamental miscalculation. He thought Ukraine was weak, and he thought NATO was divided. He's been shown how wrong he is. Ukrainians are strong and courageous and standing up to defend their land, and NATO has never been more united and determined than we are now, and I know I can speak for all NATO members when I say we will all abide by Article 5.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Je peux vous dire que Vladimir Poutine a fait une grave erreur en pensant que les Ukrainiens étaient faibles et que l'OTAN était divisée. Il a vu qu'au contraire, l'Ukraine est très forte et se bat avec un courage incroyable et inspirant. Et il voit aussi que l'OTAN est plus unie que jamais et déterminée à démontrer cette unité à tous les jours. Et je peux parler pour tous les membres de l'OTAN quand je dis que nous allons tous suivre l'article 5.
Paldies, mums laiks ir beidzies. Paldies visiem par dalību, preskonferenci noslēgsies.